Yes, folks, we have reached that point into the X-Men reviews. Today's video is going to consist of 2 movies yet again. We're just going to knock these out right away, considering that Deadpool and Wolverine is just on the horizon. As of recording, they are having the world premiere tonight. So what better time to talk about Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2. Deadpool, the first of the 2 movies, was directed by Tim Miller and is the origin story for Wade Wilson, a hired mercenary who falls in love with somebody who then has his world turned upside down, and in order to save her, he tries to become a superhero, but in doing so, it leaves him scarred and looking for revenge. There is some crazy things that have happened with this character if you've kind of followed along with some of the stories here, and one of them being is just how exactly this film even got made to begin with. Because we all know that the original startup for this character was in X-Men Origins, and needless to say, that is something that should be kept away in the closet. Like, that shouldn't be seen. Like, that should be like buried somewhere, honestly. But Ryan Reynolds did have a love for this character and wanted to bring him to the big screen in the proper way. For starters, the studios didn't really have a lot of faith to begin with for this film, and Ryan Reynolds had this test footage of the car sequence on hand. Now, this wasn't something that was supposed to be seen technically. It got leaked out by somebody technically, and it garnered enough interest from people online saying, are they really doing this? This would be really sick. This is exactly what we want from Deadpool. And the studios kind of acquiesced and said, fine, you can do your little stupid Deadpool movie, but it's probably not going to be that good. And fortunately for them, it was great. This had one of the biggest opening weekends for a rated R film ever, and it still holds records to this day if I'm not mistaken, and it clearly shows because this is a fantastic movie. And to start with how great this movie is, all you gotta do is just watch the opening credits, to be honest with you. You get a slow-mo shot of like kind of a standstill moment in the car fight chase scene here, where it kind of pans through everybody and like different objects that are around them, and it kind of has like directed by an asshole, you know, and written by the real heroes and stuff like that. So already off the bat, you already am like, okay, I get it. This is kind of a off-kilter kind of movie if you've never seen anything like this before or even heard of Deadpool before. But it's also the introduction to this movie to Wade Wilson is awesome because obviously you get the opening credits here, but then it flashes to Deadpool in a taxi, and he's kind of doing some fourth wall breaks here with like taking gum off of the camera, talking to the camera directly, talking to Dopinder, and kind of giving the little spiel about what the movie's gonna kind of be like, leading up to an amazing fourth wall break where he kind of talks to you and he goes, oh, hello, and he acknowledges that why is he in this movie? How did this movie get made? And he makes a reference that he got Hugh Jackman to kind of do it. But right off the bat, we see Wade Wilson as a wisecracking guy who has a mission on hand. There's so many cool things about the car chase scene here. I mean, you obviously see that it's a pretty well done fight within the car with a ton of funny moments with Wade laughing at people and like showing him like a crayon drawing and stuff like that, leading up to a really funny moment at the very end of this part.
Did I leave the stove on?
And it continues with even more of the action on here because we see that Wade forgot to bring a lot of his ammo, so now he only has 12 bullets, and there's a really fun sequence where you have to count down the bullets with Wade Wilson as he's killing everybody here, leading up to another fourth wall break that tells them that this film is actually a love story, and I do love this trend that they have for this movie and the next, and I really hope that they do it for the third movie, making fun of the fact that some boyfriends probably trick their girlfriends into seeing a superhero movie, but actually saying it's a love story, and it quickly cuts into Wade Wilson's earlier stages in life. We see Wade kind of doing the more heroic type of stuff as a mercenary here. Rather than killing a pizza dude, he's kind of just doing it out of the kindness of his heart for this girl because he's a stalker. And this is another really cool scene to kind of see what he looked like and what, you know, the kind of underworld that he was a part of prior to becoming Deadpool. But it launches actually one of the strongest points in this movie, which is the relationship he has with Vanessa. He meets her at this bar full of mercenaries, and they kind of hit it off, and eventually they become a couple, and they see them through all these love scenes throughout the year, leading up to the point where he proposes to her technically. I also love the line here towards this part where he basically, in so many words, kind of says that life the happiness and all that sort of stuff, you know, is just a bunch of commercial breaks mixed in with a lot of bad stuff that you have to deal with. And this was an extended commercial break because then right after this, it pans to them going to the doctors and him finding out that he has cancer in, I believe, the brain, the lungs, the liver, and another body part of his. But, you know, he's basically fucked. It cuts back to the current timeline with Deadpool looking for a certain person, and then you see him have a really fun interaction with Colossus and the greatest superhero name of all time, Negasonic Teenage Warhead. There's some great banter here between everybody leading up until the part where Deadpool is trying to escape from Colossus, shooting us back in time once again to see what Wade Wilson was doing in between his announcement for his cancer up until the point where he actually became a superhero again. He's kind of roped into some sort of lab facility thing, basically them saying that we can help you cure the cancer and we can help you be more than what you are right now. So we see Wade make up his mind and he leaves Vanessa in order to potentially cure his cancer, but it's also so he doesn't break her heart even further than what has happened now. This is a part where we get some pretty decent villains in this. If I had one complaint about the original Deadpool movie, is that the villains are maybe not the strongest people written in the world, but they're fine, you know, to be honest. We see Angel here, yet another person whose name is Angel in the X-Men universe, unfortunately. And most importantly, Ajax, who is the leading doctor here, who is going to try and infuse some torturing methods to activate any mutant genes that would be in Wade's body, so have him kick-started and become the superhero that he wants to be. It's very quickly realized that the moral integrity of this place is just not great, and we end up seeing Wade Wilson end up becoming what he is now because his skin is now basically rotten almost, like there's so many sores and stuff like that. He loses all of his hair, so his X gene is now activated, but now he looks like a monster. It leads to a pretty decent fight. Ajax's power is that his nerve endings are basically cut off, so he doesn't really feel pain, and he has quick reflexes and a little bit of inhuman strength, so it's a little bit of a decent kind of formidable opponent for Deadpool here. This is where he realizes that he's actually able to recover from anything, because as he is stabbed through the chest with a pole and it is curved, he is left in this burning building but lives overnight. You see Wade try to get acclimated back into the world. He wants to see Vanessa, but he sees how everybody's kind of looking at him. This is the part of the X-Men universe that I tend to like for the most part. We get to see the prejudice in real time kind of happen, where we see Wade going to try to find Vanessa and talk to her, but then we see people being like, ooh, this guy looks rude, this guy looks really ugly, why is he around here? We get a really fun montage here after Deadpool and Weasel, who is TJ Miller's character, have a little bit of a conversation on what he'll look like and what his name should be. There's some fun moments here where he's trying to find out where Ajax is, referring to him by his real name Francis for the whole movie, so he gets stuff where he keeps asking like, tell me where your boss is, tell me where Francis is. He even says it in Spanish at one point. So after all of this kind of flashback stuff and how we see Deadpool become who he is right now, we get to see him in real time living with a crack lady who's named Blind Al. Sparks some funny moments here, especially with the baby hand sort of stuff that he has after he cut off his original hand escaping from Colossus. But eventually throughout this movie, as Deadpool is trying to reconnect with Vanessa, Ajax and Angel find out who Deadpool actually is in love with and tends to kidnap Vanessa. This leads to the third act of the movie, which is probably the best fight of this entire movie, where we see all of them kind of lead up to, it looks like a helicarrier, even though I don't think it is, but it is a nice little dig at the fact that it's like, oh, haha, look, it's a Marvel movie almost. But the reason he's been going after Ajax this whole time is because he had mentioned that he's the only one that could make him look the way he used to. But after this fight happens, Ajax basically says, are you stupid? That's exactly how you're going to look like for the rest of your life. Like, there's no way you just did this just because you thought I could help you. I love this ending too, because as you see Ajax kind of laying there, like waiting for his fate, basically, you see Colossus come up and tells Deadpool that there's moments in life where, you know, you choose to be a hero, and Deadpool cuts him off in the middle of it and just shoots him in the head because he was droning on. Vanessa and Wade are reconnected as he blares Careless Whisper by Wham! Off of his phone, just as he had promised. Leading to a really good post-credit scene where we see Deadpool dress up as Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where he does the iconic, "You're still here. It's over. Go home." They tease some things in this where they say they're going to bring in Cable, and he also mentioned that you should clean up your garbage after your movie and not be a dickhead, which Appreciate you, Ryan. You know, we moviegoers and, you know, movie theater employees really appreciate that. All in all, it's a fantastic movie. I think the writing is very, very good. I think the relationship is built up well, and it is definitely the driving force of this. Clearly, it is a love story after all. The action is fun. It's very witty, and nothing looks really bad, honestly. I really wouldn't change much in this movie, to be honest. I'm going to give Deadpool 5 stars. This is then where we lead to Deadpool 2. This film is not directed by Tim Miller. It is actually directed by David Leitch. They had some creative differences, so they ended up getting a new director for this film. And honestly, there are things in this movie that I actually tend to like more than I do in the first movie. For starters, the opening scene is just as hilarious. This came out after Logan had came out, so you get to see a little toy kind of sitting on a countertop with Wolverine on top of a tree trunk with a, you know, branch sticking out of his chest, and there's a song playing as he kind of spins around. And his first words that he says is, "Fuck Wolverine." Deadpool is saying that he had ride his coattails for the R rating and the language and all that, and now he ups it by dying, so he decides that he's gonna die in this movie. Again, I love the like spoiler-ish things that Deadpool does at the beginning of the movie. He kind of tells you what the movie is gonna be about, what's gonna happen in the movie, and kind of an offhanded comment, but it almost becomes true at the end of the movie. So I do tend to like that approach for it, because the fourth wall breaks are usually pretty funny for that sort of stuff. So the extended opening for this film, we see Deadpool touring the world, being a mercenary, killing off a bunch of people, and I gotta say, one of the big improvements that they actually did off of the first one, not just in jokes, because I do think some of the jokes land more in 2 than they do in 1, is the action. The action is done so much better, I think, in this movie. Even for starters, the beginning scene where you see him fighting a bunch of people in Tokyo, that shot where it like spins around the room as he's killing a bunch of people, that stuff is great. I love that stuff so much. It really shows off the, you know, marksmanship that he has and the martial arts kind of that he knows. Really, he is a skilled assassin after all, so I think this movie shows off a lot more of that than what the first movie did. Leading to the moment in the movie where we get the slow-mo stuff and he starts talking about like, "Hi guys, I'm back here with a second movie, and this film's actually going to be a family movie." This is presented to us because once Deadpool returns back to his home, he is now on an anniversary. Him and Vanessa are trying to actually start a family. But their love cannot conquer all, because quickly Vanessa is killed after the people he's tried to kill earlier in the day had come back to raid his home. Now, I will say that the shock that I had the first time I watched this was pretty insane. I was like, there's no way they just killed her off to begin with. But I have my theories about her as a character, and we will probably get to those later. But for starters here, I will say that the first time watching, I was like, holy shit, they actually had some balls to really just kill her off, huh? We then cut to what the opening was, where he basically had his whole room filled with barrels of gasoline and makes it all explode. To then we get a pretty good scene that'll happen a couple times in this, where we see Vanessa in the afterlife and Deadpool's trying to meet her there. But because Deadpool cannot die, he is now thrusted back into the living, where Colossus is there to lend a helping hand. We see Deadpool kind of scampering around into the X-Men mansion, and there's some pretty decent jokes here. There's also a fantastic cameo here where we see Deadpool basically acknowledge that you think the studio would throw us a bone and kind of give us like a really bigger known actor who played in the X-Men movies. And then you see a quick shot of the X-Men universe from the McAvoy, you know, people kind of look at him, and then Beetz just kind of closes the doors really quick before he can see him. But Deadpool is staying at the mansion for a while because he is now an X-Men in training. We get to see him in this like jersey sort of thing that he's wearing, where it says X-Men trainee, as they go to meet Fire Fist or Russell for the first time in this movie. We see this kid who's at an orphanage who's basically trying to kill people, and they're kind of there to try to calm him down and make sure that nothing bad happens. And I gotta say, this is one of the few negatives that I have with this movie. I'm just not a big fan of Russell in this movie. I don't think that's much of a hot take. I think most people are not too fond of this character. But we see Deadpool reason with Russell after he has a collar on him that suppresses his mutant powers, and he goes off and he kills some of the people that work at the orphanage because they had hurt him. This sparks Colossus to stop him and also send him to jail, stating that he had disappointed him and failed him for the last time. In between this, we got a pretty good introduction to Cable in this movie, who's played by Josh Brolin. This man had quite the run of superhero movies at this point, and I really like this portrayal. He looks like such a badass here. He's a time-traveling dude with a bionic arm, and he can like make stuff like a gun, basically, with like all these weird attachments and stuff on it. He is a solid guy to be playing this character. But what's even more hilarious here is Cable's in the future, so when he shoots back into the past to get to the year that Deadpool is in, there's a little funny cameo scene here where Matt Damon and another actor are at a truck in like a redneck area, and they're just like talking about randomness. I just found that part hilarious. Matt Damon has been in a couple superhero movies now as just cameos. He was in Thor, if you didn't know that as well. Leading to Cable going to the same prison that Deadpool and Russell are in, and at first we think that Deadpool is the one that he is after, but it's quickly realized that he is actually going after Russell. Leading to yet another awesome fight here. There's some really good jokes here too, where he basically says like, I'm Batman. There's an awesome DC Universe joke here. Again, I just think that these fights are way more fluid and they're done much better than the first movie. Not to say the first movie is like horrible. I just think that the fights in this movie are 10 times better. But what is not 10 times better is the back and forth story that Deadpool has with Russell in here. At first we see Deadpool helping Russell at the orphanage, but then it leads to him kind of being distant in the prison, then leading to him saying to Cable, I don't really care about the kid, but then makes a grenade explode. And as he kind of falls off the cliff with Cable, he has yet another scene in the afterlife with Vanessa, where Vanessa is basically saying the same line she said earlier about kids give us a second chance to be better than what we used to be. So now he's doing this out of just being like, oh, well, Vanessa would want me to do it. So the twists and turns in his sort of tone and his moral, compass is kind of jarring. Deadpool returns back to his home, needing a new team to help him find Russell and protect him, and he does so by creating X-Force. You get a bunch of different characters here, but the main person that most people will know, and the people that are going to be sticking around more than likely for the long haul, is going to be Domino. And I think Zazie Beetz plays this character extremely well. She's got this nice swagger about her too, and she really plays the character about as good as I think anyone could have, really. There's another great montage here where we see Deadpool and Weasel talking to everybody joining X-Force, leading to probably the funniest character here, which is Peter. And he's just hired because, he's a random dude that wants to just make friends here. And if you thought that this team was going to be amazing and they were going to do so much stuff together, you are proven wrong very quickly, because we see that X-Force have some hilarious deaths here. All of them are parachuting down from a helicopter, and because there's a wind advisory, all of them meet their demise. One of them hits a moving bus, one of them gets hit by a helicopter, the other one ends up in a wood chipper, and while he's trying to be saved by Peter, he ends up throwing up acidic vomit and killing Peter in the process. And again, another awesome cameo that we have here is Brad Pitt is the Vanisher, and we see him for like a brief 2 seconds. Leaving only the two main ones, as Deadpool would have called it, where Deadpool and Domino are the only two left to try and save Russell. We see them try to save Russell as he's being transported to yet another prison, and Cable's on the loose trying to look for him as well. This leads to more good action because we see Deadpool telling Domino that being lucky isn't a superpower, and we see how cinematic it could actually be for them. Even more really good fights here with Cable and Deadpool. They make reference to the X-Men Origins sword cutting the bullet scene in hilarious fashion. But actually what we see after this is something that no one really knew about, to my knowledge at least, was we get a more comic accurate Juggernaut. Russell befriends Juggernaut, and as they leave the scene, we see Deadpool try to recuperate with the rest of the team, and Cable appears. Cable had came back in time because in the future, his family was killed by Russell. And because Russell had killed the orphanage leader, that is where he got the bloodthirst from. So he's going to be killing again and again and again, and Cable is there to try and stop it. Deadpool tries to reason with Cable and says that we can join forces, but let's try and save the kid first before we try and actually kill him, leading to a third act that has a lot of ups and downs, unfortunately. The intention of the third act, I think, is pretty good. We see Russell going back to the orphanage to kill the head doctor, and we see Deadpool, Cable, and Domino try to stop him. There's some cool fight scenes here with Deadpool and everybody trying to take down Juggernaut up until Colossus joins in, and we get a pretty good CGI fight. But what's more drawn out about this is how long Russell lets this doctor live. Like, he's basically telling him the whole time to say the words that he would say before experimenting on everybody, and he would burn down like half of the building during this process. In that sense, that's the part that kind of bothers me about this whole third act, is it just kind of like, it doesn't get to the point as quickly as you would want it to, which is annoying because we actually get a pretty decent self-sacrifice moment here where Deadpool puts on the collar to suppress his powers, and he sacrifices himself from Cable trying to kill Russell in this moment. And it's played up really well and really sad, but There's a couple like fake out deaths here where he keeps saying like, oh, it's so hard to go, or oh, there's the light, oh wait, no, that's just the sun, don't look directly at it, up until he officially like dies. We then see Deadpool in the afterlife yet again with Vanessa, and we see like a sadder version of Take On Me playing. And I won't lie, when I watched this the first time, I was like, damn, this is like really sad, I'm about to tear up or whatever, because we see that he cares so much to be with Vanessa now that they are all together. But Cable has other plans because he sees that the blood that would have been stained on his daughter's teddy bear has now lifted off, the future has now been saved, but he goes back in time to save Deadpool now. Deadpool is now saved by Cable, but Russell also still ends up not killing the head of the orphanage. But then he just quickly dies anyways from Dopinder just because, like, you know, whatever. It's kind of a cheap cop-out, to be honest with you, for the movie. The whole stuff is really drawn out, even though there's parts in the third act that I really do like. The Colossus fight with Juggernaut's really cool, and the emotional stuff with Wade and Vanessa is really cool, but then it's just kind of played off for like a cheap laugh at the very end. But what's even better and what kind of makes up for it is the post-credits scene, which is one of the greatest post-credit scenes I'd ever seen in my entire life. Negasonic Teenage Warhead and her girlfriend Yukio are sitting there fixing the same watch that Cable uses, so now Deadpool is able to use it at his own will. First heading back in time to save Vanessa, but then jumping forward, saving Peter from the X-Force. We then see Deadpool travel further back where he sees Hugh Jackman in old footage from X-Men Origins, and he kills off the old version of Deadpool. And then in the final one, we see Wade kill off Ryan Reynolds reading the Green Lantern script. Again, one of the funniest post-credit scenes ever. I think it's amazing. There's all the laughs, there's all the cameos, there's all the jokes. I think that stuff is just fantastic. Really quick, as I just realized I forgot to mention this part in the review that I just made for this movie, so I'll make it brief and quick. Mentioning with Vanessa in the Deadpool 1 and 2 movies, I have a hunch that they're going to bring this actress back in 3 and maybe further on after that, hopefully, because he has a fascination with death. That's like supposed to be his love of his life, I guess, in the afterlife, considering that he cannot die. It's kind of like one of those things that like he cannot have but wants. So I really hope that that's the direction they go. So back to the review. Bye. In the end, I think that there are some things that this movie did improve on than in the first movie. I think the action is done a lot better, actually, in this movie than in the first one. And I think the jokes in this have a lot more staying power than in the first movie. Some of the jokes in the first movie is kind of like a product of its time almost, whereas this one has a lot of jokes that would just be funny like in general for the most part. But I will say the one thing that it definitely lacks in compared to the first one is the story. I just think that it's a little bit of a choppy mess at points, especially with Deadpool's switch in morality throughout the entire movie, and then you get the really drawn out third act. So it's not the best way I would have done it. I kind of always say Deadpool's like right here, and then Deadpool 2 ends up being like right there. I'm going to give Deadpool 2 4 stars. Thank you guys so much for watching. We have now officially made it to Deadpool and Wolverine. As stated in the Logan review, I'm going to jump over New Mutants, and we're going to push that a little bit later. I wish I would have done it, before this new one came out, but we're going to review Deadpool and Wolverine as the next video. We're going to talk about all the glory, obviously. And then once that is out, we'll probably do a spoiler review because, trust me, there will probably be a lot of things to talk about for that stuff. And we also do New Mutants, where we will rank all the movies that had come out. Thanks again so much, guys, for watching. Make sure to go down below for all the socials where you see my Twitter. You'll see my TikTok where I also put some other movie stuff on there. And then you also see my Letterboxd that I try to go on as much as I can, but I sometimes keep forgetting. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you all next time.